Let's start with one that often surprises people. Number 1. Tomatoes. Not raw ones, but cooked, warm, full-bodied tomatoes, rich in something called lycopene. See, after 60, a lot of men begin to notice changes in how their bodies feel. A slower recovery, more fatigue, higher blood pressure, maybe even concerns around the prostate. It's not just aging. A lot of this has to do with inflammation and oxidative stress, processes that quietly wear down your cells, your blood, vessels, your organs. But the good news is, nature gives us some tools to fight back, and lycopene is one of them. I've worked with older adults for over 20 years now, and I can tell you this from experience. The smallest shifts in diet can make the biggest difference when they're done consistently. I remember one of my patients, John, 67 years old, retired machinist from Akron, Ohio, salt-of-the-earth guy, always cracking jokes, but heart surgery last year knocked the wind out of him. He felt weaker, slept more during the day, and just didn't feel like himself. We started talking about antioxidants, and I explained to him what lycopene does, how it reduces inflammation in the blood vessels, how it's been shown in studies to support prostate health and even lower the risk of certain cancers. He told me, "Doc, I've eaten tomatoes my whole life, but never knew they could do all that." So we made one simple change. Instead of sandwiches and coffee for lunch, he started heating up a bowl of tomato soup with olive oil. Sometimes he'd add a spoon of tomato paste into his stews, or even just sip a glass of low-sodium tomato juice with breakfast. 6 months later, his blood pressure readings had stabilized, and he said his energy was back in the green, as he put it. Another gentleman, Curtis, 72, from Tampa, made it a habit to sauté cherry tomatoes in olive oil for his morning eggs. Said it made breakfast feel like something from a diner. Both of them noticed real changes, not overnight, but steady and real. What often helps is keeping it simple. One cooked tomato-based dish a day. That could be a scoop of marinara sauce over brown rice, a vegetable stew with canned tomatoes, or even tomato juice if chewing's uncomfortable. The trick is heat. Lycopene is absorbed better when tomatoes are cooked and eaten with a bit of healthy fat, like olive oil. It doesn't have to be gourmet, just warm and regular. Try adding it to something you already enjoy. Even a spoonful in your lentil soup can be enough. And here's what I want to say from the heart. Your body hasn't given up on you, even if it feels that way sometimes. It's still responding, still adjusting, still healing. A warm bowl of soup might not feel like a miracle, but when you give your heart the nutrients it needs, you give yourself a little more room to breathe, to move, to live. Your strength is still there. Sometimes it just needs the right kind of fuel to rise again. Here's another one that makes a bigger difference than most people expect. Let's talk about fish. Not just any fish, but fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, or sardines. After 60, it's common to feel like your memory isn't what it used to be, or that your joints are stiffer in the morning, maybe even aching a little after a short walk. That's not just wear and tear. Part of the issue is that our bodies produce less of the natural oils that help our brain stay sharp and our joints move smoothly. Omega-3 fatty acids, especially DHA and EPA, play a big role in how our brain cells talk to each other and how our joints handle inflammation. If you've been feeling a little foggy, a little slower, or a little more sore lately, you're not imagining it, and you're definitely not alone. I've worked with older patients for a long time, and I've seen this pattern play out again and again. One that stuck with me was Raymond, 72, from Eugene, Oregon. His son called me one day, said, "My dad keeps forgetting the end of his sentences, and that he seemed more withdrawn, like he wasn't following conversations the way he used to." Now, Raymond didn't have any major diagnosis, but he was clearly slowing down mentally, and physically he'd been skipping his daily walks because his knees hurt too much. We took a look at his diet: no fish, hardly any healthy fats, mostly toast and cereal for breakfast. So we started with a small goal: eat salmon twice a week, or try canned mackerel with crackers and a little lemon. Within 3 weeks, his son told me, "He's sharper again, he's laughing more." And Raymond himself said his knees felt less rusty, which I took as a win. Another client, Elaine's husband George, 68, from Kansas City, had similar results just by adding sardines on toast every Sunday and Wednesday. No fancy supplements, no rigid plans, just real food, real benefits. What often helps is picking just 2 days a week to eat fatty fish. You don't need to overhaul your whole diet. Baked salmon with a bit of olive oil, or sardines on whole grain toast, or even a warm fish stew can do the trick. If you really can't stand the taste of fish, talk to your doctor about high-quality omega-3 supplements, but food always gives you more than just the oil. Add lemon, garlic, or herbs if the flavor feels too strong. Keep it simple, but keep it regular. You don't need to feel foggy or stiff or like your mind is drifting. You can sharpen it again, gently, steadily, like tuning an instrument. Your brain is still capable of joy, memory, clarity. It just needs the right kind of fuel. Even small changes, like a fish dinner on Tuesdays and Fridays, are acts of self-respect. You've made it this far, and that deserves nourishment, not neglect. Now here's one that's both easy to overlook and incredibly powerful. Number 3, leafy greens, spinach, kale, broccoli. Not fancy powders or exotic superfoods, just good old greens. After 60, our circulation naturally slows down. That means less oxygen gets to your muscles, your brain, even other areas you probably don't talk about out loud. You might feel more tired doing everyday things or catch yourself struggling to focus the way you used to. Some men even blame it on aging or stress, but the truth is a lot of it has to do with blood flow and the health of the blood vessels that carry everything your body needs. I remember when I first started working with older adults, I didn't realize how much of an impact something as simple as leafy vegetables could have. One of my clients, Walter, 69 years old from a small town in Montana, came to me after recovering from a heart attack. He said, "I don't want to feel like I'm surviving. I want to feel like I'm living again." His energy was low and blood tests showed his hemoglobin was just below normal. We didn't jump into extreme diets. We just looked at how he started his day. Turns out he wasn't eating much in the morning. Toast, maybe some coffee. So I suggested adding just a handful of sautéed spinach into his morning egg, along with half a kiwi for vitamin C. It became part of his routine. 3 months later, his blood work had improved, and even more importantly, he said, "I don't need a nap after mowing the lawn anymore." Another gentleman, Dennis, 74, from Phoenix, used to skip lunch and snack on crackers. Once we got him into the habit of tossing some chopped kale into a soup or microwaving broccoli with dinner, his afternoon slumps started to ease. These were small changes, but they made a big difference in how they felt during the day. One of the easiest ways to get started is just by adding a bit of spinach or kale to something you're already eating. If you're making scrambled eggs, drop in a handful of spinach. If you're having a sandwich, try adding a few leaves of arugula or romaine. If you're making soup or stew, toss in some chopped broccoli near the end of cooking, even frozen. Greens work just fine. Don't get hung up on perfection. It's about consistency. I tell my clients, if you can do it 3 or 4 times a week, you're already ahead of the game. And just remember this, your body may be older, but it still listens to how you treat it. Every bite of something green is like opening a window, letting in more oxygen, more clarity, more strength. You don't need to flip your life upside down. You just need to give your body a little of what it's been missing. Start small. A handful of greens a few days a week. That's more than enough to begin. Let me share one that's as simple as it gets. Number 4, eggs. Now, I know they've gotten a mixed reputation over the years, but the truth is, for men over 60, eggs can be one of the most effective, affordable, and accessible ways to support your muscle health and hormone levels. As we get older, we naturally lose muscle mass, sometimes without even noticing it at first. But over time, that loss affects everything: strength, balance, metabolism, even confidence. Testosterone levels also dip with age, which can bring on fatigue, lower motivation, changes in mood, and slower recovery from physical activity. You might think you're just getting older, but often it's your body asking for more of the right building blocks. And one of those blocks is protein, especially first thing in the morning. I remember a patient of mine, Marvin, 66, from a small town in Texas. He'd always been active, loved gardening, worked on his truck, took walks every evening, but after a long winter, he came in feeling off. "Doc, I just don't feel strong anymore," he told me. His sleep was shallow, his appetite low, and he'd started skipping his morning stretches because he felt too stiff. When I asked what he was eating for breakfast, it was the same thing every day: oatmeal with a bit of sugar and a banana. Not terrible, but not enough protein to support his muscles or hormone production. I suggested adding 2 hard-boiled eggs to his breakfast. Nothing fancy, just something his body could actually use to rebuild and energize. Within a few weeks, he was back to doing yard work in the mornings and even joined a low-impact resistance class at the community center. What changed? He had fuel again. Another client, Frank, 70, from Florida, told me he'd avoided eggs for years because of cholesterol fears, but once he spoke with his doctor and reintroduced them in moderation, his energy levels and sleep improved, and he said he felt like himself again. One of the simplest ways to support your muscles and hormones is to eat 1 or 2 eggs in the morning, scrambled, hard-boiled, soft, or in an omelet, however you enjoy them. Eggs provide high-quality protein and choline, a nutrient that helps with memory, focus, and hormonal balance. You can pair them with vegetables or whole-grain toast if you like, but the key is to start your day with something more substantial than carbs alone. And if you're concerned about cholesterol, speak with your doctor. For most older adults, moderate egg consumption is not only safe but beneficial. You don't need a complicated diet or expensive supplements to feel stronger. Sometimes it's as simple as giving your body real nourishment when it needs it most, like in the morning when you're just starting your day. Think of it like laying bricks, 1 egg, 1 step, 1 layer of strength at a time. Your body still wants to support you. You just have to give it a chance. Let's wrap up with something small that packs a real punch. Number 5, berries. Blueberries, cranberries, raspberries, any kind you like. As we get older, the blood vessels in our brain and eyes start to lose flexibility, making it harder for oxygen and nutrients to reach where they're needed most. That can lead to memory problems, slower thinking, and even vision changes. You might notice yourself forgetting names more often or feeling lightheaded when you stand up too quickly. These things can feel frustrating, even scary, but a lot of it ties back to circulation, and berries, believe it or not, can help keep those tiny vessels strong and healthy. I first started paying attention to this years ago after working with a man named Harvey, 71, from outside Pittsburgh. He came to me after a dizzy spell that sent him to the ER. Nothing major, thankfully, but his blood pressure had been creeping up, and his memory wasn't as sharp as it used to be. He joked that he could remember the names of every baseball player from the 60s, but kept losing his car keys. We ran some basic cognitive screenings and blood tests. Nothing alarming, just the usual signs of age. Instead of jumping to pills, we started with breakfast. I asked what he usually ate, and it was cereal or toast, no fruit. So I suggested something easy. Plain yogurt with a handful of frozen blueberries. That's it. No diets, no tracking, no pressure. Just that one change. After 2 weeks, he told me, "Doc, I don't know if it's the berries or just the idea of doing something right, but my head feels clearer." His daughter even called me later and said, "He's talking more again." Another woman, Carol, 68, from Vermont, told me she started adding raspberries to her oatmeal and noticed fewer headaches and better focus in her quilting group. These weren't dramatic transformations. They were steady, honest improvements. What often helps is finding one way to eat berries each morning. Frozen works just as well as fresh. And you don't need much, just a handful. You can toss them into oatmeal, mix them with yogurt, or blend them into a smoothie with banana and water. If you're not a breakfast eater, even a cup of berries as a midday snack can do the trick. The flavonoids in berries help strengthen the walls of blood vessels and reduce inflammation in the brain, 2 things your body really benefits from over time. And here's the part I always remind people of. Taking care of your brain doesn't have to feel like homework. It can be sweet, bright, and simple, like a spoonful of blueberries on a quiet morning. Every little step you take in that direction adds up. You're still you. You're still sharp. You just deserve a little support, and sometimes that starts with something as small as a berry. Which of these habits feels closest to you? Share in the comments. We read every message, and you are definitely not alone. If you enjoy videos like this, hit subscribe and tap the bell. There's more simple but important advice coming soon. And most of all, remember, you are stronger than you think. Life goes on, especially when you make it just a little tastier and healthier every single day.